Welcome back, beautiful people. This is another episode of An Untold Narrative where we host creatives from all around the globe with different passions, projects, and brands. Today's guest is a one of a kind, the first of his kind, somebody who is cold messaged to be on this podcast. And since the 95 plus episodes in, I have not accepted anybody, but Terrance's story from a couple clicks in, I was like, this sounds like somebody who should be on the podcast. So I am very excited to get into the conversation with Terrance Diggs of D17 Clothing. Terrance, to start, tell the people what your mission is. Like, why are you doing all the things you do?
That's so exciting. And I love the first question because I thought it was going to be like, the intro, whatever, explaining myself, which is always great. But I love coming out the gate with the mission thing. And I guess I'll just roll off it. So my name's Terrance, and my mission really is athletics, design, and community. Really being able to create opportunity through sport and make product that really excels and highlights athleticism with, athletes to players to, your pickleball fanatic to your marathon runner, to your basketball overseas person or somebody that's just getting it done from the day to day. Been 7 years of pushing that mission and being able to completely and always embody sport and kind of the spirit of athletics. And here I am Sunday morning talking to you, enjoying
I
it
love
and
I
excited to
love
get
that.
in
And
this conversation.
so your three pillars actually build a great framework for this convo, because we're going to try to follow that. Athletics, design, and community. For those who needed a rebump on those are three very different but very beautiful kind of frameworks for a brand. You mentioned 7 years though. Is that how long you've been doing D17? Is it a full-time thing? Like, give people some context as to like what kind of it is and how you're involved.
Yeah. So right now, really the 7 years has kind of been my internal benchmark. Started really producing the brand when I came out of undergrad. So that was around 2016, 2017. Didn't really get into, e-com and setting everything up until after like a year later. Like I teased product for about a year, did shoots, made samples, and kind of just got the name out there. It wasn't until 2017 that it was like, okay, let's actually start putting some stuff on a website and, collecting payments and processing for bigger releases. And then really around, I guess you could say 2020, 2021, it was like, okay, let's get our, straps together. Let's get everything set up, get outside help. How can I, get payment systems to get contractors and work with agencies and photographers to really keep everything as professional as I can. I know I'm still kind of a small team, but being able to kind of keep that upper level, not only customer service, but also like people that work alongside you, is really just where the 7 years kind of puts me. And I like being closer to like, yeah, I'm almost 10 years in versus like my on paper too. But, it was a lot of work before, getting everything LLC'd up and all that. That I like to just, give it still its heritage and
Why?
recognition.
Why? That's really interesting. Why do you think that you spend so much time prepping yourself and building up to the kind of all-in moment? Because so many people these days, so many people, creatives, entrepreneurs that we talk to, really just start and then they figure it out, right? It sounds like you've had this slow build of like, I'm going to make sure that when I do this, I'm ready and everything's dialed up.
Yeah, so I think really, I think it's a little bit anxiety, like all creatives feel. It's like, it's when it's time to put the product out, it's like, oh geez, how are people gonna resonate with it? How are they gonna, think behind it? But I think honestly, it's just I wanted to really make sure that my process is as clean as possible from, brief to mood board to manufacturing to fulfillment, and then obviously like activation, whether it is something event based or being able to connect with other businesses and collaborators. Because I know early on, like, everyone's trying to find a manufacturer, everyone's trying to find someone to print, everyone's trying to find someone to do the marketing, to take the photos and stuff like that. I really wanted to put together everything to fit in a way that felt just clean, just for myself, because honestly, I'm just doing so many things at once that I want to be able to keep it together. And then once I was like, okay, I've really got my stuff together, I can now put it in place. And when people come to me or opportunities arise, I have all my books are together. Versus, I try to stay from like, oh, like, I don't know, I haven't done this yet. Where's your stuff made? We're still working on that. And even now I've gone back on the manufacturing process to really keep everything clean and together. And now I'm at the point where it's like, I can send cold call messages on LinkedIn or email a business and say, hey, here's my website. Here's the press we've done. Here's product I can show you. I can show you future releases. Here's my demographics, my audience, everything we've done. Here's myself. And then I can get a real polished pitch going. And it's just helped me now in the long run. I can sit down with organizations and they feel more comfortable working with me because I'm so small. But now it's like they think I'm like this huge like 30-man team, and it's really only like four of us. So I'm like, yeah, let me just speak to my director of content, and like really it's just me, and it's like he said he'll do it, and then kind of going from there. You kind of switch the hats out every now and then, which is fun.
Wow, that's super interesting, man. Congratulations. I mean, so many people talk about this dream, right? Of like, starting a
Mhm.
brand, working for yourself, building it out. And it really sounds like you've taken the time to hone in on your craft and make sure your shit's buttoned up. And it's really nice to hear because
Yeah.
it doesn't always go that way. You mentioned kind of having, product releases and again, going back to that framework
Mhm.
of that first pillar of athletics, right? So two-folded
Mhm.
question, but I want to tackle the first is you've had
Yeah.
partnerships with other sports teams. It sounds like you've worked with like a baseball team in your
Mhm.
area based on your website. For anybody listening, like how do you build partnerships like something like that, like a full team, they're betting on you to deliver, how do things like
Mhm.
that come up and arise? Is it simply just cold emails?
I think it really kind of has like a two-part thing to it. I'm a big guy of just I just got to ask. I
Mm,
can't. The only thing, the worst I can get is a no, right? So, just being able to, I feel like for one, identifying with teams or organizations that really align with what you're trying to do, because that just makes the conversation easier. And usually, sometimes as well, it's like you might know somebody that. Uh, that works in the front office somewhere. Maybe you went to school together. Maybe they played with somebody that Like, luckily, I played sports for a long time. That they're like, oh, actually, me and this guy, we played baseball, t-ball. We were 8 years old, or like, me and this girl, we played community college basketball together. And I'm like, okay, can you get me a little inside or something like that? But the instinct you're talking about was with the Bowie Bay Sox. They're under the Baltimore Orioles farm system. They're an affiliate, and they were looking for businesses in the area for a community night, basically highlighting colleges and businesses that kind of fit their mission of bringing people together. Obviously, sport. Um, and still kind of not taking it away from the actual game because they have his name Jackson Holiday and he's like the greatest prospect ever. Um, and basically, when they came to me, I was able to bring the pitch like, hey, I'm a Maryland brand. I do make apparel. I'm not trying to make a uniform. I'm happy to
mhm.
make like more of the streetwear kind of side, and being able to give them what they wanted for like a product giveaway. I was like, well, I don't want to just do pamphlets and business cards. I was like, let's turn this thing up. And we ended up putting together a hat. I wish I had it, but we were putting together a hat that remixed the old Bay Sox 1994 inaugural season logo and colorways and stuff like that. We just put it in a modern feel with the D17 and being able to remix it into something that didn't look like, like a Detroit Tigers or something like that. It
Mm,
felt new. but recognizable, with the brand colorways. And we kept the baseball fever with D17 and everything. And we didn't sell them. I gave them away. I gave away 200 hats to whoever came
Wow.
to me at my table. And obviously people are like, are they selling these in the store? I was like, no, nope, just right here. And they're like, oh, wow. How much? I was free. And they're like, no way. They're like, yeah, all I need you to do is follow me on Instagram. The people were just so confused because I take so much time to putting it into product and taking every step, like thread counts and colors and mid, high, low profile, pre-curved brim, enclosures and everything. I'm like, they were freaking out that they're like, yeah, it's free. And, I couldn't, obviously I wasn't allowed to in my contract, licensing and all that stuff, but it was a cool, like, one-time activation to really let people see what we have going on and what we're able to do. And it was cool. Like, people loved it. And I sent some to the front office.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to get a letter from the MLB or the MILB being like, hey, you can't do that. But they're like, hey, let's let's keep this conversation going. So now it's like down the line, I was able to see what our growth was, what I was able to do for like referral to the Bay Sox organization and their website. And it's like, hey, we were successful before. Maybe if we do something like a limited release in the store or something we can do online, or, if we're, have matching Shopify accounts, we could probably cross collab on a
Mm.
product and really showing that kind of grassroots unity. I think was just cool. And, now I'm trying to get to obviously other teams, either if it's like MLB or NBA or, I'm trying to talk to the PPA, the Pickleball Association. Just being able to see like, hey, if they can put their trust in me, I can give it back into them and bring them value that they may have been looking for, even with my small brand.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. I think the interesting takeaway here is do the work for free, right? So many people are scared of that
Mm,
and they shy away from it because it's a huge gamble. But when you really
mm,
have that long-term vision, then it's really not a risk at all. It's just that it
yeah.
can lead to more opportunities. The other part too of my question in terms of athletics is one thing that I've really leaned to in personally is running. And so I know that
Mm,
D17 has a running club, and it sounds like you're really passionate about it. And so I wanted to give some
mm,
space to talk about it because running's really changed my perspective on life, and it allows a daily outlet for myself to just be free and think freely, more specifically, and also
mm.
exercise and how important that is. And so I'd love to hear more about the running club, the running community, which touches onto the third pillar a little bit, but just kind of what you're doing there.
Yeah. So I started the running club probably, sadly, like a little bit before all the COVID shutdowns. And I feel like a lot of people were in that same realm because we couldn't go to gyms anymore. We couldn't go to a lot of social events. So a lot of people turned to running to be that kind of outlet. Now I played lacrosse in high school. I ran track, I played ball. I played golf for 4 years. So it kind of was like, uh, back then the running was the punishment, it's like, get on the ground, run a mile, stuff like that. And when I started doing it kind of as an adult, it just, like you had mentioned, it became a way to kind of go and approach things at my own pace and my own feel and kind of style of how I like to do things. And then kind of rolling off that, um, like I mentioned before the call, I worked for ASICS on the SPS sports style social media, and really being able to understand the heritage of running and what they've been able to build and how all the companies kind of cross pollinate, like Nike was selling, right? Blue Ribbon Sports at the time was selling Oniska Tiger shoes, and then how running became a lot bigger around the Olympics, and all these guys are winning in these cleats, and they've never seen these silhouettes before. And now how more modernly, like, people are bringing back retro models and wearing them, and more contemporary tastes, like obviously Nike with their Romero, Asics with the Gel Kayano. Obviously New Balance has always had their things with their collaborations with like Amélie Ondor and Kith and stuff like that. But like for me in our club, we're all a lot of former athletes. We're all looking for new ways to kind of compete and push ourselves. Because I really kind of missed that structure growing up. I played, sports all the way from child to my early 20s. And it's like, geez, I don't have that discipline of getting up, go to practice, go to school, work out, eat, now it's like, okay, well, I'll go to work and now what do I do? So,
Mhm.
running kind of brought back some of that stability. And then over time, I was like, okay, I'd love to make product. I don't know if there's like a gap between like that fashiony and like cool hype kind of lane, as well as still being either performance or anything you can just wear, recreationally. I kind of was able to do some of that, and I worked with the Chasing Roses Run Club that was in Seattle, Portland area. Same thing, just cold DM'd the run leader and I said, "Hey, I'm a small brand. I've got a bunch of shirts. I'd love to send them out to your team." And he was like, "Yeah, sure. We're actually running the Portland Marathon if you want
Oh,
to
wow.
outfit us." And I was like, all right. I went to UPS, bought the biggest box that I could. I probably put 15 shirts, hats, water bottles, socks, jackets, you name it. Obviously is like a seating kind of thing. And then I get a call back and he's like, "Yo, everybody, we loved your stuff. We took a picture with our medals after the race as a team." And I was like, "Oh crap, they actually really are like, into the product and everything, and they like the design and they resonated with it very well." Then that led us to doing a collaboration with the Run Club. We did a collaboration hoodie together, just something simple because they didn't have any merchandise. I was like, all right, well, let's do something. And their leader Tunde, he sent the link out, and I'm sitting in my house and my phone just I'm like, what is going on? And I keep seeing all these Shopify notifications. I was like, "Tunde, what the heck did you do?" He's like, "Yeah, I just sent it out to everybody and they liked it and their friends liked it. And, these other clubs were liking it. This club in Atlanta, this one in Detroit, this one in Austin, Texas." So then I was like, oh crap. I thought we were making like 25 hoodies. And I was like, this is like 150. I was like, so, obviously that's when you have to call the homies. It's like, "Hey, I've got pizza and let's just, eat this real quick. And can you guys help me pack
Mhm.
150 hoodies that are going across the country?" So, luckily my friends are always like super supportive to do that kind of stuff. And I do reward them either, a lot of times it's very food based, incentives, but, being able to do that. And then I run myself. I participated in the Baltimore Run Fest last year. I've, ran with a lot of the Baltimore, DC running stores like Charm City Run, Feet First in Columbia. And we currently run with them now every Thursday. Like our club and their club, we kind of merge together. And, thankfully they've allowed me to come in their space and feel included.
Mm.
And then now it's like every Thursday on my clock, I got to go to Run Club. I'm with my friends. We're doing our workouts together on the track, or we're exploring new lakes and paths. And that community slowly grew and grew and grew and grew. And now it's like going back to kind of the first question with those pillars and things. Uh, Now when people are like, "Well, when are you gonna make more stuff? When are you gonna make more stuff?" And I'm like, well, I'm kind of, I'm working out new deals and, textiles and stuff like that. Like, let me get that together. Now it's to the fact that when I'm putting a product out, I have a big enough audience that a lot of people will begin to see it and the motion will go behind it. Versus when I was starting out, it was like, all right, links up, who wants it? And then, it's just crickets for like 3 days. But now it's like people are either looking for it or they want to keep it in their day-to-day regimen. Even I want some new stuff. I'm actually sitting on new water bottles in this box right here. But being able to kind of do that. And now I'm kind of looking to get it more into the retail space, like trying to find new stockists and stuff like that. that really resonate with the same things that we do. I'm still kind of on the front end of that, but now it's like, okay, how can we be able to get the product to more people and expand reach and letting them see it?
I
That's
was
just
gonna
a lot of emailing, a lot of calls.
I was gonna ask. So you know the this event of you just reaching out to this run club cross country, you
Hmm.
just gifting. You're not making money on this, and then they hit you back. You do this collaborative hoodie. You finally make some money, right? Like because you're making all
Hmm.
these hoodies 100. Let's call it 150. You know,
Yeah.
anybody listening is like has to start questioning. I questioned it. I'm like, man, you do a lot of shit for free. It's like who's paying
Who
the
is this?
bills,
Who is this guy?
and then you get this opportunity for 150 hoodies where you can finally like make a little bit of money. You know, how do
Hmm.
you balance that, like of like the opportunities of like I'm gonna do this for free, or hey, like I need X number of dollars to execute this. Like, do you ever have that conflict in terms of like, because it's great to do cool projects all the time, but like at the
Hmm.
end of the day, like people got to eat too.
Hmm. Yeah, I will say actually a real time uh kind of obstacle I ran into. So last year, I went back to my alma mater at Towson University and I made a bunch of t-shirts for them. Um, Off a whim. I probably had maybe 150, and our school is it's Division 1, but we don't get the same love as a lot of the other schools that have the 47 licenses, the New Era licenses, stuff like that. And I put together a T-shirt, and I was like, I'm just gonna go up here at the homecoming with a box and a table. And once again, I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna give them out. I literally no advertising. I just pulled up, I just put them on the rack, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna stand here until someone comes up to me and they say, hey, this cool shirt. I'm like, yeah, you have a student ID? And like, yeah, it's free. And they're like, oh, shoot, okay. They put it on, they walk around and they talk with their friends and stuff like that. And then at one point I was getting berated by all these people, um which
People
was
like free shit,
crazy.
man.
And then yeah, they do like the free stuff. And it's really wild. It's really wild because when I posted the shirt, my sister and I went and did a quick photo shoot of the shirt. And it's crazy because someone from the ownership, or not the ownership, company, um, that owns the Wizards and the Capitals and stuff like that, like the NBA, NHL, all that stuff. She does global partnerships. She was there at the tailgate right next to where I was set up. And come to find out, she was a Towson alum. And she was like, oh my goodness, like, is this your stuff? I said, yeah, it's free. And then she was like, oh no, sweetie, this needs to be, obviously monetized or something. And we made a connection and I was able to get to know her. And she's great. Shout out to Jennifer. She's great. And really taught me how I can go back and do stuff like that. But then it kind of was a twist behind it. Like, okay, Towson, I've given you know, the concept. And then now it's like, okay, maybe we can work together to get a budget behind this. And then we can put something together that's more polished, maybe get it in the store. Maybe I can do the same thing, but with more of the backing of the school. And that's where stuff like grants and
Mhm.
obviously that budget begins to build. And then eventually, I'm doing another project for my high school and kind of tying back to that community. I opened it up to the city and I was like, hey, I'm doing this, community based t-shirt. I'm, selling sponsorship space on the back or on the sleeves and stuff, because I want to highlight you guys. Obviously, it's not going to be something, extremely egregious in terms of the advertising space as it is, but it eventually helped me build budget out, to get one more product, two, highlight the community, and three, not have Capital One calling me for a random suspected fraud charge because sometimes you have to use your own money to kind of get stuff paid for.
Mhm.
Obviously, like you kind of have to go into the own bank. But now it's like, okay, I'm kind of developing those avenues of revenue that it's like, okay, I'm not only selling my own stuff, I've developed these relationships with these stores and other groups that now we're helping them create stuff. And I'm able to generate money off of that. I'm able to go, work with, getting to the retail space. Like, okay, now I can start making inventory to put into stores. I can start worrying about our, direct to consumer stuff. And it's kind of like, okay, then you start seeing the notifications come in and you're like, all right, I don't have to bust out all this because obviously the free is cool. And like you said, but then it's like, geez, I didn't blew the budget for the year on one thing, and like stuff is slowly like getting expensive. And it's like, I don't want to cut corners in terms of, uh, how I'm going to like screen print it or embroidery or whatever. Um, but I will say first, it was like, geez, I got to stop doing all this giving away stuff, because then sometimes you might send a package and you're like, hey, hopefully,
You
I
share
get a
it.
little social media post or something. And I'm like, geez, I never heard from this person. They just took 10 pairs of socks and just went.
Yeah.
And, I don't know what they
No,
did with them, but it's
I've been there myself. I've shipped full paintings to people, just because, of our
mm,
relationship or whatever, thinking like you'd get, but
mm,
that's the flaw, right? Like you can't have expectations of people, because then you just
mm,
get disappointed, and it doesn't suit anybody well, but you got to do these opportunities to meet that person at the partnership level of these major organizations, right? Like
yeah.
you're gonna
Mm,
hit one of these times, and you just have to get through all the mud in order to get to the grass. So that's
mm,
a really cool story. And so one thing I did want to talk about that I don't think enough people who are like really bootstrapped and really doing this on a day-to-day grind talk about is like,
mm,
is this like an all day thing, everyday thing for you? Like, do you love it? Like, are you like obsessed and like you can't think of anything else and like you're just so in it? Or do you have you gotten to the point where you find this flow state of like, okay, I have a life and I have time with my friends, whether that's making pizza and packing boxes
mm.
or family or whatever it is? Or is this just like a full on grind every single day, weekends involved? Like, where do you stand?
um, I think in terms of me being that type of creative person, I have to have some type of balance between it. Um, because at first I was like, every day, all day, let's do it. I still have a 9 to 5, but I'm like, we got to do it every weekend, 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. I got to do this stuff. I got to do this stuff and getting things out. Um, but I've gotten to the point now, and I love being able to say this. I always think back when I was like, 19, 20, 20, 20, 21, thinking like, oh, I wish I started sooner. I wish I started this when I was like 16 or something like that. But I don't think I had the discipline and the production that I do now to be able to kind of get stuff completed. Like, yeah, I love being able to grind and, you know, put my nose to the dirt and get things done. But after a while, I found out that I'm just wasting a lot of time doing 10,000 things versus like really honing in on like 3 things that I can really sit down and like, I have a PS5 and I'll just throw my headphones on and talk to my friends while I'm sending like, okay, I'm going to send 10 emails today. I'm going to make 5 social posts, and, I'm going to make a blog post or something, or I'll get like, chat GBT to do it or something, or at least get the prompts together, versus like, okay, I'm going to sit up all day. I got to think of a whole collection. I got to think of what accessories I have to do this, I have to do that. But sometimes I get a lot of inspiration, obviously from sport, or, I could be watching TV, I could be watching Netflix and I'm sitting down and I'm watching a documentary on F1 and I'm like, I'm interested in like these silhouettes of the cars and how they, use sponsorship and kind of the titles that, I've gotten really into soccer recently. So it's like I've been looking at like the different kits from, all the regions and seeing their styles and a lot of the heritage things with like a Nike or a Umbro or Asics or a Kappa. Like, wow, I didn't even know these guys were making this stuff in the 90s and 2000s. And that's kind of where I pull a lot of inspiration from. But being able to take that step away and looking and experiencing and seeing stuff is what helped me. And then I'll kind of jump in my phone and be like, okay, let me, screenshot, take a picture. And I'm like, okay, well, now I know when I'm going back to make a collection, it's like, all right, maybe I'll do 2 shirts, an accessory, something else, maybe something bigger. I can plan that for down the line. And it's like, okay, well, I have this event happening, because one thing I've learned is being in the business is stuff flips so fast. If you talk to me in 2018, I didn't think I'd have a run club in 2020. I don't even think that was in my my vision. I would, even 2021, I didn't think I'd be talking with pickleball companies in 2023, or working with the Bay Sox, or talking with these athletes and stuff. I didn't think I was. It just switches so fast. And then it's like, okay, I have to be able to go out and have that balance with my family, and sit down and think and look around and see what people are wearing, what palettes am I seeing in on the streets and stuff like that. And then it's like, okay, now I can go back and sit down with a clearer mind and be like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Maybe it take me 2-3 hours, maybe a day or something. There might be that one day I'm grinding all day doing stuff, but I think now the brand is so ingrained with my own life that it's like, sometimes it's not even work. Like going to Run Club every Thursday, it's still, at the beginning, it was a business, kind of like, okay, they can show I'm active, I'm here, I'm showing my face. Now it's like, all right, I'm going to Run Club. I'm seeing the store owner. I'm talking to her. I'm seeing her husband. We're shaking hands and eating gummy bears and stuff like that. Or if it is working with the Bay Sox, like, I love baseball. Yeah, I was giving away hats, but I was still a fan of the game when I was there. Or being able to send cold emails. I've always been a fan of, like, the stuff you do, and like the people I meet on LinkedIn. It's like, cool. This is just people of common interest that I feel accustomed to. And then it's like, hey, I love what you're doing. Let's say it's somebody, at a company, and they're like the director of, partnerships or brand collaborations in energy. And I'm like, hey, I'm curious, how you kind of go through your day to day and stuff like that. I'm interested in that stuff too. Oh, by the way, I sell t-shirts too. So then it kind of built that conversation. You find out they have their own brand too. And I'm like, hey, you make knitwear, I make shirts. Let's do something together. I don't care. Are you in Baltimore or DC? You got a camera? I got a camera. Let's get a coffee and take pictures somewhere, see what's around. And it's just so intertwined that I feel like I'm rambling. I'm trying to get away from the day to day, like, hard, get it done, get it done, get it done. Cause then you get burnt out, and then you lose inspiration, and it's kind of takes away from it. Cause I've been in that. And anyone listening, I've been in that. I remember, and I'll end it here. I was at a photo shoot with my friend Jorge, and he's like my ride or die homie. And I remember I'm looking, this is spooky. I'm looking at the people taking the pictures, all my friends and, photographer. And I'm like, crap, I got to do this again in like 3 months. Like, like, you take so much effort to put into the collection that it's like, I got to replicate this magic again, and then obviously life comes in, and, outside factors. But I was already in my head before the stuff even touched the site. I was like, crap, I got to figure out all new colorways, new designs, new models, new stories, new timelines. And I was like, oh man, I'm freaking out. And I didn't put stuff out for like 6 months. I was so into myself that I was like, I don't think I can replicate what I'm making now again. And then think about it, I got to do it again. I try to at least every quarter, but like,
Yeah.
that's where the creative kind of anxious side hits me. And I'm like, oh geez, I got to do this again. I got to find something to look for. What's inspiring me? Oh. Let me try to find something that's inspiring, versus letting it find me. And then kind of going from there. So it's a back and forth. And luckily now I've got a whiteboard with tasks. This is what I'm doing today. I can take a day off. Like, don't people should, like, you can take a day off. It's okay. It's okay to go go to the bar with your friends, if you're 21, or hang outside, or go for a walk, or ride a bike, go to the movies. You might watch a movie and hear sound like in the soundtrack and be like, huh, that's interesting. Or, being able to see that stuff. Cause that's how I get it. Like I saw the Barbie movie and I liked the credit song. I was like, this rocks. Like I would love to make like a campaign around something of this type of feel, or like the sounds, or like the speakers and stuff like that. So you never know where it's going to come from. And I try not to force it. And when it finds me, it finds me. If it doesn't, then, you
Yeah,
gotta stay in love with it.
there is something to be said about, being so future focused that you actually aren't even present. And it sounds like
Hmm.
I've personally
Definitely.
experienced that at one point. This is 3 or 4 or 5 years ago now. I was working like 3 different jobs at the same, and I had a stable full-time job. It wasn't necessary, but it was like, I
Hmm.
was so obsessed with like doing more, or the concept of doing more, that it
Hmm.
actually took so much away
Yeah.
from the present moment. um,
Hmm.
which is going to be pretty, one thing I want to ask you before we wrap up is, pretty contradictory to what we just spoke about, but as you go forward and as you build out these collections or think about your life and your creative, avenues forward, do you have
Hmm.
a goal? Do you think about that like long term? It would be perfect if I got to X or Y or Z. I I heard this quote on a podcast, and they said uh yourself from 5 years ago would be happy where you are today. And it was so true, because like we get lost in everything that we're working on and things like that, but that we forget how far we've actually come. And so I want to think about, do you think about what's happening in the future, what you're building towards, and can you appreciate that?
Yeah, I think definitely being able to like see myself, I don't assume I'm going to be like the next Pharrell or something like that, which would be cool. I'd
Sick.
love to, you know, yeah, do my own stuff, get the Louis stuff, kind of just keep putting out great work. I obviously think about like personal life, like tying back all the way with like all the free stuff. Like I definitely, I get nervous sometimes that I sit down with like I'll be, I don't know what age I'll be. I sit with a financial advisor and they look at all my, financials, and they're like, why do you have this random, very large other part? What was that? Like, yeah, I had a business and I bought a lot of stuff and, I didn't make a lot at first and like I'm still trying to make it back and stuff like that. I kind of don't, I think about that sometimes, but um, obviously I'd love the brand to be in a position to where, it's known and recognizable and people love the product all over the world. And, we're able to assist and help athletes and work with, I'd love to work with the New Balances and like do activations and make product together. Or like I'm maybe 20 minutes from Under Armour, being able to work with them on like grassroots activations or product and stuff like that. Cause I feel like just D17 has this malleable kind of like a thing, but it's not stuck in a thing because it's, even when I was trying to name it when I was 5 years ago, I was like, I want to have a acronym name or name it after something. It's just my last name and my number when I played sports. So I was like, it kind of embodies its own thing, but now it's grown into its own thing. Um, and then I think about like super future when I'm, in my 70s or 80 years old. And, I make these pieces like at Towson or the Bay Sox or something like that. And, I'm sitting somewhere, maybe I'm in Florida and I'm on the porch and some grandkid or something runs up to me and they say, oh, Grandpa, did you make this? And I'm like, yeah, I was real cool, back in the day. I made all this stuff, all this crazy things, or people were able to recognize it. Cause I think about that too. Like when I did the Bay Sox giveaway, it was a bunch of kids. They're probably 8 years
Mm.
old, and they got a bunch of hats and they're jumping up and down. They're like, we got hats, we got hats. And I was like, you're going to thank me in like 30 years. So, and I checked eBay and I'm like, D17 vintage pieces, kids are like on TikTok raving about finding like, wow, I found this D17 minor league Bowie Bay Sox hat from 2023. And I'm like, man, I remember when I was sitting up there giving them things away, and then now it's like it all kind of found its way back to me. But I would say, kind of tying it back from me 5 years ago, looking at myself now, I'd be like, I see what you did there, but now I'm kind of thinking of myself now and like what 5 years ahead of me would think. um I would definitely be like, I think you sat down, you really took this thing seriously. You obviously knew, like, a lot of people, you tell them, why are you making t-shirts? You know how many t-shirts exist in the world? You know how many brands there are? You know how many people are doing the same thing? And I kind of got away from trying to stand. Obviously, it's like you got to stand out and be different. But I was like, I don't think I really need to try. I think I've got it in a way. That's what people tell me. They're like, some of the stuff you be doing is weird. And I'm like, yeah, but you wait. I'm like, just something in my brain is clicking. And then it's like the fact that it's weird. Like I told my friends, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna start making pickleball stuff. This was like 2019. I was saying it,
Mm.
and I was like, I should do this. Or like even the run stuff. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna start a running club. I don't care. Trying to do that. And I think in terms of who I want to be is slowly getting there. I think past me is definitely thinks I'm like so cool because I wish I had like my own studio and all this stuff and everything, but I'll get there. And I try to tell myself as a creative, like, I think it'll come to me when I'm ready for it, because like I said, when I was younger, I don't think I was ready for it. I know, no crazy words, but I think I would have screwed it up. Honestly, I
Mm.
think I would have tried to go too far. I think I would have looked in the wrong places. I think I would have just gone belly up. And then I've been like, well, and now I don't know what I'm doing. And I think now I'm at the point that as things come, it'll find me. Now I know how to execute when I see it. I know ideas will come to me when they can. I try to block out the noise of competition or whatever. Like, I mean, people can buy multiple t-shirts. Like, it's not like they have to buy me every day, every hour. Like, they can wear other things too. But I'd love your patronage. But it's just like the way that now I think I'm just so comfortable. I feel like I'm in a good space, both mentally, physically with the running. I feel like my creativity is still bouncing off the walls, but I'm able to kind of take that energy and put it together. It's like Dragon Ball Z when Gohan unlocked his inner potential. Like, it was wild, but now I'm able to like hone it into something and be effective with it. Um, and like I said, each part that I've pulled from the 5 years of me ago, like the running taught me how to be fit and disciplined. The cold calling a bunch of people taught me how to be aggressive and how to create pitches. General life, obviously my friends are having kids and getting married and stuff like that. That taught me like it'll come when you're ready for it. Maybe I'm too busy right now to do that stuff. Obviously blowing the bag when I was 21, taught me later on, hey, let's set aside or whatever to think about building this collection, how much I need to spend, where I need to go, how I need to do it, or how I can change the plan to, keep costs very lean. So it's kind of like I've always been pulling like every aspect into one big thing, and then I keep putting it back in the brand. And then it
Mm.
comes out within me, and then I kind of start to see it with people around me, because now when they see that letter and that number, they're like, I know that guy makes good stuff. He's got a great support system. He really loves his community. He's willing to advocate for his community. I wasn't the biggest baller when I was playing sports, but I had a couple of articles, so I wasn't like all American or anything, but I was pretty decent. I'm not like a scrub. Um, they know that something is coming in the future, and they know that I want to stick around for a long time. So
Mm.
I've been trying to be able to keep that together with the brand, because I feel like a lot of people think you're just going to fall off after like year 3 or something. Like, you see stuff on TV, like most businesses, close after 2 years. I'm like, well, I'm at 7. I'm super lean sometimes. There's times I've had 0 sales for like 3 months. There's times I'll get like 100 with the run club in 2 days, stuff like that. And I've gotten comfortable with the change and the growth. And then I hope 80-year-old me is fine. I hope 19-year-old me is fine. 28-year-old me feels good. And when I feel good, the brand feels good. So I just go from there. And
I think that's an amazing way to summarize yourself and your brand and your mission and your vision long term. Terrance, this has been awesome. I'm super happy that you
thanks.
you did reach out and you shot your shot, and I think that's a huge
I
takeaway
did shoot.
for people who are listening. Just closing, where can people check you out in your store, or your product, or your past, or your personal life? Like, where can people find you?
Yeah, anything d17terrance.com is all my personal, and it's all linked to the store. All the store stuff is just d17clothing.com. If you don't want to type that in, d17.shop. Uh, you know, all the socials, D17 Clothing. It's all the same thing. LinkedIn, come find me. I'll keep my DMs open too. Anybody has questions, follow on Instagram. I love conversation. I love being able to meet new people and going from there. And hopefully, David, I was enough that, we can, keep talking and developing, a connection, because you never know. I might bump into you somewhere and I'm like, hey, I know that guy. We did a podcast, or a
that
episode together at 10 in the morning, the day football starts. Then I'm like, yeah, I'm that
that's
guy. I was that guy that
that's why I do
so
this, man, is because you do bump into people in the weirdest places on this planet at the weirdest times, and they create magic. So I appreciate you reaching out. This has been an unbelievable conversation, another episode of An Untold Narrative. So Terrance, I appreciate you, and thanks for hopping on with us.